Hey folks, this is Alex-Deacon, and this is something that we recorded after this podcast, but it took so long. I think it was a 35-minute podcast. But it was important. It was about frequently asked questions about property management. And since I get a lot of these phone calls from clients, potential clients, and they have questions, I just felt that you might not listen to this whole podcast because it's so long, but you should. So if you're interested in property management or you want to hire my company, please listen to the full length of this podcast. It's about 35 minutes, and it will answer probably 80% of all the questions you will have. And then if you have any further questions, you can contact me via email. But thank you so much.
Welcome back to Real Estate Investing with Alex-Deacon, the Property Management Series. Alex, we're here to talk about Mace Property Management again. And
yes, we are, Adam.
And the wonderful things that you guys do with property management.
That's correct. I get a lot of frequently asked questions, and we discussed before in another podcast where I'm constantly answering the same questions over and over. So it's just, I think it's easier for me and the average, real estate investor who wants to find out about my company, Mace Property Management, or just property management in general. Instead of asking me, they can just go and listen to, an hour's worth of podcasts on the subject. So this is like kind of my way of being lazy, so I don't have to do this 10 times a week. But it's also actually easier for the client because they can just go on and listen to it at 2 in the morning or 9 at night, whenever they want. And
right.
Then if somebody's like serious and they do want to do business with my company, then we can maybe set up a time to discuss like the more detailed, finer points of what we do. Mm-hmm. But this is just a good introduction and an easy way for me to get the message across, and an easier way for them to get the message at their convenience.
I like that. And if you haven't listened to any of Alex's episodes before on property management, look up Alex-Deacon's Property Management Series on Spreaker, on Apple Podcasts, I believe it's called now, on Google Play Podcasts. Type in Deacon Hoover Real Estate or DHRE into any podcasting service. You should be able to find the programming that way. But today, we're covering the frequently asked questions. So, Alex, let me start off with a very general question. Softballing you here. Is your property management team licensed?
Yeah, absolutely we are. We are licensed. So that's an important question. I'm gonna let you know of like the important questions to ask, because the average client or potential client, I get some silly questions asked me. I say, what, that's really not an important question. It's important, but you're not going to base your decision on who to hire on that question. So I'm going to try to prioritize like the most important questions. Is that one important? Absolutely, because in Pennsylvania, I don't know about other parts of the country, but in Pennsylvania, if you're managing properties for multiple owners, you have to be licensed. And we've been licensed since 2002. That means we went to the Pennsylvania Real Estate Commission. They approved our license. We have an official office. We have a broker of record. And we do everything in accordance of the Pennsylvania Real Estate Commission, how they want our files in order, how we want our security deposits, accounted for, all that good stuff. So yes, we are licensed.
And that's actually different state by state.
I do believe so.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I joked, and I apologize for my ignorance, because I joked when I said that because I thought that was like, of course you have to be licensed, But that was a good question. So you've been in business since 2002. Alex, how many properties, do you manage? And not just properties, but like properties, units, when we're going down that rabbit hole.
Just ballpark right now, because it fluctuates. The number goes up every year just a little bit as far as how many units. But we manage probably about 700 units, and we probably have around, say, 200 different owners.
Wow.
180 to 200 different owners. Because some owners just literally own one house, and some owners might own 20 units.
Okay. Now, how many different employees does that break down on different properties?
We have, at this point, right now, we have 3 licensed property managers. We have 2 office staff. And we have one person who officially just does all the accounting.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess about 6, but we have like little like sub staffs, I should say. Like we have like our property manager is one of the property managers has a small portfolio, but he manages, but he also runs our repair division, so he's responsible for that, and we'll go into that later.
Okay. So you do. I mean, what types of properties do you manage?
Mainly single family. And this is scattered site, right? So scattered site means it's not just 600 units in one area, like literally one block under one roof. Nothing like that. The biggest one we manage, I think we manage like a 15 unit. So that's, under one roof. And then most of our stuff is spread out all over Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas.
Now, we've talked about this before, but I just want to, again, in case people have not listened in, and guys, please go back and listen to our old episodes. But when you said that you have scattered sites, do you feel it's important to have your portfolio scattered a little bit everywhere, or do you think it's more beneficial or more lucrative just to focus on one area? Or
as an investor, you mean?
Yes, sir.
As an investor,
is it just personal
I guess it's twofold, right? I like to have them all in one area that is super appreciating, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not reality. But yeah, I'd rather have, for logistically speaking and for the ease of management, they're so much easier if you have your entire portfolio in one area, right? But like my own portfolio, I own properties all over because I just buy the deals when they come. When they expose themselves to me, and if that's a good deal, I'm going to buy it.
You're a deal seeker.
Yeah. So but I also do know the value of having them all in one area. Like if I found a property deal that's close to where I live or where I work here, then I'm probably going to pay a little bit more money for that, knowing that I could probably manage it a little more efficiently, and I can just watch the property more often, and it's just closer, right? So I can afford to pay a little bit more. If it's in an area that's far from my office and maybe I don't have the resources that I do close to the office, then I might consider buying it, but I might want a little bit better price on it.
Gotcha. Let me see. So with that, what are your management fees on different properties?
Management fees can vary between 6%, that's of the gross monthly rent, as high as 12%. And the reason there's a range is because we have some owners that they own a house that's worth $400,000 that we rent for $2,500 a month. So if we're renting a house for $2,500 a month, you're usually getting a pretty good clientele in there, right? And it's usually, as far as management's concerned, it's usually easier to manage something like that. So I just don't feel it's fair to charge an owner 9 or 10% to manage one house that's in a good area that we're getting really good clientele. So that's why it might be as low as 6%. On the flip side of that, if you have 4 units, so say you have a duplex over here and then a duplex across the city, and they're renting for $700 each unit, we're probably going to charge 9 or 10% for those. Because to be honest with you, to manage that one duplex in one area versus managing that one house at 6%, I'd rather manage 100 houses that are renting for $2,500 a month. I make just as much money and we work less. Right. We deal with less issues. Less
riffraff.
So that's why the management fees vary from 6 to 12%, and it also depends on how many units you have. If you have that scenario where you have 2 duplexes, one over here and one on the other side of the city, if you have 30 of those, then maybe that management fee can come down to 8%. Instead of 9 to 10%, it can be 8 to 9% because you have the volume.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So now,
so let me go back to. Okay. That's the first question I get usually, right? What do you guys? The first question I get is, "What do you guys do?" I'm like, okay, do you have a few hours? What we do? Not even a few hours. Do you have a few
days, maybe
weeks? Yeah. You want to walk around with me and my staff for a few weeks? But what do you guys do? That's one question. The other one we get is, what do you guys charge? What is your management fee? And that's not the first question you want to ask. I mean, it's important, but like how Like, how experienced? Here's a question you should ask: how experienced are you in the property management field? Do you invest in real estate yourself, Alex? How experienced is your staff? What is your vacancy rate? Maybe some references that they can call. Okay. That's important, because if you're talking about making a decision on management between hiring a company that's 8% and one that's 10%, you're talking about 2 percentage points, right? Mm-hmm. So 2 percentage points of it's pennies, right? Mm-hmm. What happens if you hire the company? And I'm not saying the one that charges more is better, but what I'm saying is if you hire a company that charges a certain fee, but their performance is lacking, right. Like they don't have good communication skills with the tenant, their vacancy rates are higher, they charge you a bunch of other fees that you don't see, then you're actually losing money. So
especially if you have to maybe put more money in for repairs or for anytime there's tenant turnover and things
there's so many different variables. So yeah. So your question was, what do we charge? That was a long answer, wasn't it?
No, that was.
I could have just said 6 to 12%. Next question.
No, that's good. We want those in-depth questions. Yeah, no, I'm glad you cut me off of asking the next question, because I'm glad we went down that extra layer. My next question, though, is going to be, what is your fee for filling new tenants or releasing an existing tenant?
That's a good question. That's one I get all the time too. And some owners don't understand. Like, oh, that's not included in your management fee. No, there's not a company out there that I'm aware of that does it that way, at least in Pittsburgh. So that's called a leasing fee or a finder's fee. Some companies call it different, but that's usually the two names. If you have a vacancy and we have to advertise for a vacancy, show the property, screen the tenants, finally approve a tenant, get a lease signed, make sure they have renter's insurance, make sure they have utilities on their name, make sure we get a non-refundable security deposit. There's a lot involved. Checking their references, criminal background check, verifying employment. Once we do all that, we place a new tenant. That's called a leasing fee or finder's fee. We typically charge the first month's rent. Now, I give a range for this also because I go back to that scenario, the $2,500 house. We're not going to charge somebody $2,500 to put a tenant in. It's just ridiculous. It's way too high. But if you have a $700 or $800 unit, even maybe a $900 unit, we're going to charge you the first month's rent. Okay, so that's our fee to find a tenant, place a tenant. Some of our owners want to place their own tenants. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because they don't screen them like we do, or they overpromise, and then we get caught on under delivering because we don't know what they promised, because we got to pick up where they left off.
Right.
So we're not on the same page. But most companies are charging what we charge, but some of them are charging a full month's rent regardless of how much it is. We reduce that finder's fee as the rent goes up. So it could be low as, let's say, 50 or 60 or 70% of the first month's rent, depending on how much the rent is. That's called your finder's fee. Those two fees are the largest fees for a landlord. That's the management fee, and then your vacancies. If your vacancies are high, your finder's fees will be high. Okay.
Now, with this, do you have any hidden fees, like for repairs, marketing, account setup, anything along those lines?
We have a few other fees. We have a technology fee. It's $3 per door. Okay. So if you have a 3-unit, then we're going to charge you $9 a month. What that fee does is it covers our costs for our property accounting software. The software we use is called PropertyWare. And this allows, it costs us per door. Every door we have, we put on, we have to pay an additional, fee. So it allows the tenant to have 24-hour access to their own portal, so they can pay online, they can do things like that. They can change their contact information in the system. We won't even have to know about it. The other thing is for the owner can go in there at any time and pull up reports. They can give their portal password to their accountant. Their accountant can go in there and pull up reports and do all their taxes. They don't even have to be involved at all. The owners can go in there and pull any repair invoices, like they might want to check on something that we did and say, well, wonder what they did for this $800, and they can pull a repair invoice. So they have access to their secured portal, and that's a monthly fee comes out per door. And then the other fee that we charge is called a lease renewal fee. So every time we're able to get a tenant to renew their lease for 1 year, and if we can get a rent increase, that's great too. But every time we renew a lease, it's a $100 lease renewal fee. So I know some companies charge, I've seen as high as a half a month's rent. So if your rent was $700, that company would charge every year $350 to renew a lease.
Wow.
Which again, I think is crazy high.
Now, the PropertyWare program that you spoke of, is that something that every property management company uses, or is that
anybody who's I tell you what, I've seen some in Pittsburgh that don't use them. They're still on pencil and paper.
That's exactly why I brought it up.
We've seen some of those. I mean, they're dinosaurs. They're few and far between. But okay. Some companies might use QuickBooks. We use a industry specific software, and it's called PropertyWare. There's a couple other ones out there that are very good, and the names escape me right now, but PropertyWare is one of the larger ones, and it's a good tool, and it's very helpful for the owners. Love it. Yeah.
Now, so is this something where, if needed, like you could always provide copies and templates of all your contracts?
Yeah, anytime. If you wanted to hire my company, because I do get that question a lot, can I get copies of your leases and your contracts? Of course. Yes, I can send them over to you. They're blank, and you just look through them and have any questions. That's where, instead of me telling you what property management is about, and that person would listen to this podcast per se, and then email me with any other questions they might have.
And how would they email you? Where would they contact you at?
My email address is alex@alex-deacon.com.
Easy to remember.
Yeah.
Easy to remember. So now here's a big question that a lot of people would, I don't want to say a lot of people, but I think you might run into this more often than what people think. But what happens if somebody tries to cancel the contract, or cancel their contract or their lease within the first year?
Yeah, our contracts are 1 year. So let's say you enter a contract with my company and you're unsatisfied after 8 months, I'm going to let you out of your contract. Mm-hmm. I don't want an unhappy client. Mm-hmm. If it's not working out, then one, we did something wrong. We under communicated, or we over promised, or we under delivered something. It's honestly, it's never the customer's fault. Mm-hmm. And that's why, you have to look at it that way, because it's not. So you did something wrong to make that customer not like your services. Now, sometimes it has to do we'll screen our owners. We'll screen our new clients. I don't bring on every client. In fact, I turn down more management clients than we bring on. Because one, it may be in an area we don't cover. Or two, the landlord might be on such a tight budget where if one little one repair puts them in a situation where they can't make their car payment, or they can't pay their house bill, the mortgage. And I can't help an owner like that, because if you have a major health and safety related issue like a furnace, and that owner doesn't have money to cover a furnace, then how am I supposed to manage a property that has no heat? That's just an example.
Yep.
So we have to screen our new owners too, to make sure that they're a good fit for us, and their expectations are in line with what we can provide realistically.
Okay. Now, is this something too where it is somewhat situational, where because you said like a lot of times it's probably you did something wrong, not the owner. But is this and you said after 8 months, sometimes you might let them out because it's better to have happy clients versus sometimes do you and I'm only playing devil's advocate here just to kind of push back. But is there sometimes when even that it's probably it's more the other side of the deal, but you just kind of give in anyway just to save face?
Well, you know what? I don't deal with the property management side every day. So it's easy for me to say it's our fault, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, if I talk to my staff, they get frustrated. They have owners that are unrealistic on their expectations, and that's where the problem arises. Either my staff isn't communicating, or we overpromise and underdelivered. So,
yeah.
is every is every one of my clients awesome and I'd love to just hang out with them and be buddies? No, I mean, honestly, I'd be unrealistic if I said that, right? But as a business owner, when you have an unhappy customer, a lot of times it's something you did wrong. Right. Or something you didn't do right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see. So what types of payments do you accept? I mean, and what would you advise that people take?
Yeah, from our tenants, we can accept, they can, of course, send in a check. They can send in money orders. We don't accept cash because there's no way. First of all, it's easy. Cash can disappear, and two, there's no paper trail. Well, I paid my rent. No, you didn't. I mean, because we don't accept cash. So where's your canceled check, or where? You know what I mean? So we can accept check, and we also can accept. They can pay online, so they can literally go onto their portal and pay right from their checking account.
And that would include money order too, I would imagine, right?
Yep, money orders, checks, and then they can pay online. And then as far as owners can still get a check. Some of our owners still want a check, and some of them we can get direct deposit from our account into theirs, which is how most of our owners do it now.
Let me see. So now when it comes down to, so we got payments covered, we got different things with the contract covered. So what about property inspections? I mean, do you perform them personally, or?
Do we perform property inspections? Yes, they have to be. It would be something that you would have to request as an owner. Okay, so if you want us to do biannual inspections or annual inspections, we do those. It's an additional charge. We have to pay someone to go out there, meet with the tenant, and maybe take some notes about what the property condition is. We just find it sometimes it's intrusive and it can be counterproductive, because what can happen is you do these inspections and let's say the tenant is completely filthy, right? It happens. There's nothing I can do about that. I can't tell the owner, well, I'm going to tell the owner they're filthy, and then the owner's going to say, well, what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, there's nothing I can do about it legally. I can't. I mean, right. When they leave, it has to be clean the way we gave it to them. And when you do these inspections, sometimes it can be counterproductive, because then the tenant's just nitpicking. Okay. They're usually, when they're there and you're there at the site, they are usually finding fault in anything they can think of. Yep. And it causes...
They're there looking for trouble.
Sometimes it just causes more work than it's worth.
Yep.
So, it's... But we can do them. It's an additional fee. It's not much, but we have to, cover our costs.
Now, we kind of touched upon something earlier, but let's get back to security deposits. How do you really handle the security deposits?
So, well, the way they have to be handled in PA, Pennsylvania, is all the deposits have to be held in a separate escrow account. So we have like 3 different accounts. We have our Mace operating account. We have our Mace owner's account. That's where all the rent monies and everything goes into that. And that's where all the monies get dispersed to plumbers and to trash bills and to electric bills and water bills. And then we have a third account, which is our escrow account for security deposits.
Okay.
So each one of our tenants has their own account, and they don't have access to it, but they have their own account, and it's interest bearing. So meaning that whatever the interest is, it's so minute, but you have to have it in an interest bearing account. So yeah, every deposit is held in a separate bank account at our specific bank, and it's collecting interest.
Okay, let me see. Now, so we talked about turnover a little bit too, vacancies and things of that nature, and why it's important to keep a tenant inside. Keep tenants filled up inside the owners' units. So, let me ask this question: when somebody does leaves, what's the average cost of a repair bill after people move out? Basically, just to make the unit or the home or the whatever, to make it rent ready.
Got it. There's a question I can never answer with.
There's no solid answer, right?
Yep, and I get that question too. So here's an example why I can't answer that. What is the average cost of a repair bill, to make the property rent ready? What's the average cost to make a property rent ready? Sometimes it's as little as $250, and that's just, it's every once in a while it's like zero. It's every once in a while you'll get a tenant just leaves it cleaner than when they got it.
They were on a mission.
But, typically just to have a minimum, to have a place cleaned and maybe have the windows cleaned and, maybe the carpets, little things like that might be $250. Okay? Now, if a tenant moves out and they moved out and the place is spotless when they moved in, then it should be pretty close to spotless when they moved out. Now, if they move out after a year, it should be damn near spotless, right? If they've been there 5 or 6 years and you, the owner, have to expect to probably have to maybe replace a carpet in one room or paint the hallways, or there's going to be some normal wear and tear. Now, on the flip side of that, the worst case scenario is, like, I own properties of my own, and I know that when that tenant moves out, they've been there forever, and maybe I inherited them. So the kitchen's old, the bathroom's old, the carpet's old. I know when they move out, it's going to cost me $10, $15, maybe $20,000, depending on what I have to do there.
Right.
So to make that property rent ready, it could be $10, $15, or $20,000, because I might need a new kitchen, a new bath, carpet, paint, plaster repair, new light fixtures, just to make it presentable.
Know, right? Yeah.
So average. What it costs for average move-in, move-out repair, it depends on your unit.
Yep.
And how long the tenant's been there, and so on and so forth.
It varies on the unit, the tenant. I mean, there's probably a million different things that would go into that too. Let me see. Okay, so do you provide any monthly statements?
Since the owners have access to their own portal on the accounting software, they can go in any time. So we don't provide statements because they can go in at any time and print a statement. We used to, like years ago before we had this software, we'd literally send out a printed statement every month and mail it. Okay. We don't need to waste a stamp or kill any trees now, because you can go onto your website and go into your portal and pull up all those statements. Right. And what's really nice about it is I had a question. I mean, I told an owner about this the other day. He was printing up his statements. I'm like, why are you doing that? Just give your accountant your portal access, and they go in, and you don't have to do anything. It's really nothing. Because my accountant does the same on my properties. He just goes in and pulls up the needs. Yeah, I don't do anything.
That makes it so much easier.
It sure does.
Let me see. So now, Alex, since this is a frequently asked question, this is hypotheticals here. If I decide to sell my property that I don't own, right, do I have to sell it through you?
If we're managing the property and you want to sell your property, you do not have to list it with us. A lot of our owners do, because one, I've been in the business for sales for 23 years, sold thousands of homes. We have a sales staff and a sister company called Deacon Hoover Real Estate Advisors. We have way more experience than that on the sales side. So most of our owners will list it with us because it just makes it easier, because we already have a relationship with the tenant. So, it makes it easier. But you in no way have to list your property with us.
It just seems like it's more streamlined because the relationship's already built there. You already have that going.
It is. I would say probably 80% of our owners just decide to list their home with us.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I heard Deacon Hoover Real Estate Advisors is a pretty good company too.
Oh, absolutely.
Heard they're great.
They are awesome.
Let's see, Alex. So, how and when do I get the rent payment?
Okay, so when you as an owner, when do you get paid? We pay all of our owners at the end of the month. The reason we wait for the end of the month is because we never know between, let's say your tenant pays on the 5th, right? And we send out a check to you on the 10th. So if we did that, then you get this major repair that comes up, right? And where do we don't have, we're cash flow negative at that point.
Right.
And we have to ask you to send in money so we can make the major repair. If it's a small repair, we can handle. But if it's a $3,000 boiler, which is a heating system, then we're gonna have to have you send in payment so we can pay for the entire repair. We can't float. We could float, $5,000-$10,000 a month. But as a company, when you have 700 units and you're floating a couple thousand here and a couple thousand there, it can become
adds up a little quicker.
Yeah, it become an accounting issue, and then next thing you know, you're bouncing checks. So we have to be really careful when we pay our owners. We pay all of our owners at the end of the month. Most companies who've been doing this a while do the same. Some even pay the first week, like They wait till like the first week of the middle of the next month, which I think is crazy. But yeah, we pay once a month at the end of the month.
Let's see. Now,
another question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Absolutely.
Another question I get. I wanted to definitely hit on this was how repairs are handled. Mm-hmm. How do you handle repairs? I mean, the long version is too long. The short version is when somebody calls in, we send someone out to assess the repair. We take care of it. We send you a bill. Now, if it's a small repair, we're not going to call you for, let's say, just pick on a garbage disposal. Right? Because a garbage disposal is going to cost $100 for the disposal itself and probably $100 to send someone out and replace it. Right? So $200 to $250. We're not going to call you because it just doesn't make sense because you want us to get an estimate. The most I'm going to be able to save you is maybe $25. And I already got a guy there. So by the time I get you another estimate, we have to pay this guy to go out. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm not getting the job. I got to get paid for my time. It's $50 just to show up. And then I can save you $50 somewhere else. So you ended up paying the same. Right?
Yep.
But we will get estimates on if we send somebody out and it's a major issue like a major sewer line, or maybe it's a furnace, but the furnace, we're at the end of the heating season. So we have some time to get an estimate or another estimate. When I get a call at 3 a.m. and our furnace is out, I can't get you estimates. I have to send somebody, and you have to just trust us that we're going to get a good price. Because we have our own repair company. It's called Rent Ready Rehab. Mm-hmm. We created this because we found that there are a lot of good contractors out there. But there's not a lot of good contractors who are good business people. Meaning they can never keep their billing straight. They can never keep their schedule straight. They show up when they can. They don't show up sometimes. They don't communicate with tenants well. We created this company. We get excellent prices from our vendors, but we handle all the accounting, all the infrastructure, so they don't have to worry about that. They don't have to run their business, so to speak. So yes, that's a for-profit company, but at the end of the day, our contractors come back to us. They know that they're going to get repeat work. Mm-hmm. We're top priority for them. They give us very good prices, and we make a profit on that. But at the end of the day, it's typically we're giving better service at the same price or less than you could get on your own.
It's one of those win-win situations you always talk about.
Yep, it's absolutely that way. So how we handle repairs, it depends on the repair. If it's a large repair, we're calling you for approval, no matter what it is, unless it's an emergency. Mm-hmm. We're calling you for an approval. If it's something small, we're going to handle it. We're going to use our company to do the repair, or we can use your own people. If you have your own contracting crew, or you have an uncle who's a plumber, or an uncle who's a roofer, or a friend who's an electrician, just give us their name. We'll use them. We're not going to mark up the bill. Some companies, literally some management companies, will mark up the bills just to mark them up because that's how they make more money.
Wow. We
don't do that. Like our plumber's bills don't get marked up. Our plumber bill is whatever the plumber charges us because he's excellent, and we don't specialize in plumbing, so we don't mark up those bills. So yeah, we can use whoever you want us to use as long as they're licensed, as long as they're reliable, and we can send them a 1099, meaning we can't pay any of these vendors cash. We have to do everything above board, so we have to pay them and send them a 1099. Mm-hmm. Okay.
1099. Excellent.
Yep.
Now, what other questions, because, we hit some bullet points here, but is there any other questions you can think of that might not be frequently asked, but might be good to know for, property managers, just things that aren't asked as much that might be, that should be, I guess.
Yeah, we can maybe cover what the important question should be. Okay, so we talked about this earlier. You should be asking the person you're interviewing, the property management company, like, what is your experience in the real estate industry in Pittsburgh? Okay, and it's important to say Pittsburgh because what if we just came here from Houston? We started a company here. We could have 50 years experience in Houston, but not here, and it's different.
Totally different market.
How many staff members do you have? What are their responsibilities? What is your vacancy rate? Because I'll get questions like, well, how do you guys advertise? Well, we advertise everything online. Well, we're online. I mean, I couldn't even tell you, to be honest. We put it on a couple websites, and then they dispute it, or they disperse it like everywhere, right? So I get leads from websites I've never even heard of sometimes. But the key question is, that's an important question. How do you advertise? Where do you advertise? But more importantly is, what's your vacancy rate? Because I could give you some spiel on, oh yeah, we advertise in 80,000 different websites. What's your vacancy rate? Well, we're like 10%. That's horrible, right? Our vacancy rate right now is running around 3.5 to 4. Wow. Sometimes it's as high as 6. It just depends on the time of year, depends on the market, it's a supply and demand. But yeah, our vacancy rate is very good. So whatever we're doing marketing-wise is working.
Okay. So now, what's a good vacancy rate? Just like, I know you said 10 seemed a little high.
It depends on the building.
Okay.
Yeah, like I have some buildings that 10% is probably the norm.
Okay.
And I have some other buildings that I'm running at 1% and I have for 25 years. But our vacancy rate over 650 to 700 units is, I would say, if we averaged it between a good vacancy rate year and a bad, we're probably around 5%.
That's good. Okay.
So other questions you should ask is, your knowledge in the industry. What is your vacancy rate? Just important questions too, that sometimes it's not even a question. It's just listening to what the person on the other line is saying. So then that works two ways. I'll listen to the owner explain to me what, how long they've been in the business, so I can get to know what their experience level is, because that makes a big impact.
Right.
And questions, I'll listen and hear what are their expectations, because that's how I know if I'm going to be able to satisfy them.
Right.
Because their expectations, I've been doing the real estate investment side of things since '93, right? So I know what realistic expectations are, because I buy and sell real estate every month for myself. So I know that. And if I hear in their voice that their expectations are just way beyond what I can provide,
right.
and they're not willing to bend on that because somebody told them, maybe whoever sold them the property sold them on these higher expectations,
right.
then I can't help you. So I guess for me, as a property management company owner, I listen. And on the flip side of that, you as the property management potential client should also listen and ask maybe some questions that don't have to do with property management, but maybe have to do with investing in real estate. Because it's not all about X's and O's, it's about everything in between that can tell you as an owner, is this a good fit for me? Does this management company know what they're doing?
So be a good listener and ask the right questions too. And you mean listen? We should listen to one another? It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, that listening thing is important. But this was quite long. This was
long. We're about
25 minutes or so.
About 40 minutes, but I think this was very informational though.
No, we did 40
very
minutes?
Informative. Yes, sir. Right now we're at 37:45 if you guys are watching the clock at home on your radio dial.
Wow, that's a long one. Okay.
This was good though. This was informative. I think this one flowed very well too.
Hopefully, I'm hoping that all of you owners out there, well, if not, they've shut us off by now. So I should have said this at the beginning. But, hopefully you listen to this, because it is important. Even if you don't choose to pick my property management company, this should help you in maybe running your own management, or this should help you in preparing to interview other management companies. Whatever the case may be, it will be helpful. So it's probably a good 38 minutes spent just listening to it, maybe in your car as you're going to work or something like that.
Or just late at night when you're looking over some properties. And this is going to be a good listen. This is definitely going to be a good listen. So
thank you, Adam.
Thank you, good sir. I appreciate your time on this, and I'm sure everybody at home appreciates your time. Guys, if you did enjoy this, if you appreciated this, if you learned something, we have a ton of episodes. Go to dhrea.com. Go to our learning tab. You'll find all of Alex Deacon's property management series on there. You also find real estate investing with Alex Deacon. There's a whole ton of other different stuff on topics on there. And we actually have a third podcast on there called The Realtor Nation with Ian Hoover, where he sits down and interviews other like-minded investors, real estate professionals, and it's really, really great conversations. So, guys, check us out. Search for us on all of your podcasting platforms. Look for us on social medias, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We are all over the place. Search Deacon Hoover or DHRE, and you will find us. For Alex, for everyone else here, I am Adam. Thank you so very much. We'll see you next time.